Welcome to the Market Sip. My name is Patrick Donovan from eXp Realty, part of the Johnson Group. I'm here with my buddy Brandon Giebler from Next Move Realty. And real quick before we get started, if you're looking to buy or sell a home in the Savannah area, our contact information is right above or down below in the description area. You can get our contact information. So if you're like, what do I do next? I want to sell a house. What do I do? Well, first thing, give us a call. We'll hook you up. All right.
Hook you up.
We'll hook you up. So let me ask you guys something real quick. Why does it feel like no matter how hard you work right now, it's just getting harder and harder to afford living in Savannah? We're talking about groceries, rent, housing market prices, and everything going up. But the big question is, who actually is responsible for fixing it?
Well, tonight we got congressional candidate Brian Montgomery here, and we're talking housing development, Tybee funding, and even what's happening globally in Iran, and how all that comes right back here to coastal Georgia.
So if you plan on living here or you plan on moving here, you live here, you just care about the city, you want to hear this.
Right. So tonight's guest is someone who's built his life around service, leadership, and discipline. He's a military veteran and a candidate for Georgia's first congressional district, stepping forward at a time when things are getting crazy, like the affordability, the growth, national security are hitting real close to home right here in the coastal Georgia. So his campaign focuses on fiscal responsibility, strengthening the economy, and putting American interests first. But beyond the policy, this is someone who's looking to represent the same communities we live and work in every day. So let's welcome to the show, Brian Montgomery.
Hey, Brian, thank you for joining the show. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Good evening, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Well, before we get to Brian, we want to put a poll up real quick. So let me ask you guys this question. All right. So, what is more frustrating right now in our area? Is it the cost of living, rent, groceries, gas? Is it the growth and development? Think traffic, data centers, and nickel refineries. So, if you think cost of living is the number one problem area, press 1. If you think it's growth and development, press 2. Put it in the poll. We really appreciate it. And of course, our show is for you. So if you have questions for Brian, please ask the questions. This is your chance to talk to Brian yourself. So thank you, handmade. I appreciate you joining.
Patrick, is there no option 3 for 3 all the above?
All the above. That's what I was just thinking. I was like, how do I choose now? I don't know.
You have to choose one. So Brian, why don't you, for everybody that's never met you before, doesn't know you, why don't you tell us about yourself and why you decided to run for Congress?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to be on tonight. Really excited about this. Did a little bit of research, and it's awesome. What you guys are doing. Bringing attention to the Savannah area, Port Wentworth, Pooler, and I think you guys talk about food. You talk politics. You talk development, all across the board. So I really appreciate you guys for sharing what we truly hold dear to ourselves, which is Southeast Georgia and all the wonderful things that we have down here. But the opportunity to introduce myself to folks, I really appreciate it. So number one, I'll introduce myself the same way I do every single time. My name is Brian Montgomery. I'm a Christian. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a conservative Republican. And for a vast majority of my life, I've spent it in uniform defending our nation and our great Constitution. It's just who I am. Service has been in my nature. And I truly believe that I've been put on this earth to serve others. And I would love to tell you that path life to get me here as a congressional candidate has been this straight line, success after success. And that's not how life works. It's been one of these roller coasters up and down. And I've just tried to stay true to who I am, my character, my integrity, my faith, my work ethic, and really looking out for those around me. That's been the greatest part of my life, and I'll be able to explain it and hopefully share some more of it. My life didn't start off super awesome. my mom and my mom and my biological father got married at a very young age, and unfortunately that didn't work out. And so it was just me and my mom, and she took me back to my great grandparents' farm in Indiana, and it's a reason why I have such a soft spot in my heart for our agricultural community, because the work ethic, the faith that exists in that community, and that sense of community really gave her the strength to go back out and become a respiratory therapist. And it was so funny because, as I was thinking about entering the race, and I had to sit down with my mom and say, look, if I do this, they're gonna look at every part of our lives, every part of my life, and pick it apart left and right. And we really hadn't talked about the early part of our lives, right? When I was just a baby, you can't remember anything. And so we had this really hard discussion about how things went at the very beginning. But she said, she looked at me and she said, I knew that I had to take care of you. And then she stopped and she said, when you love something, you fight for it. And that gave her the strength to go out and apply for a job to become a respiratory therapist. Didn't know anything about it, but when she went to that interview, she was able to convince that, the guy sitting across her in the interview, that she would be the hardest working person that came across his desk, for this job. And I started thinking, I'm like, okay, now I know where I get some of my competitiveness, my work ethic, a little bit of confidence to do the right thing. And so she got hired as a respiratory therapist, trained, and that's where she met my dad, who adopted me. And he was in the Air Force to help pay for medical school. So we've lived in Minot, North Dakota, Pensacola, Florida, came back home, and I grew up in middle school and high school and went in Roswell, Georgia. And if you asked me what I thought I was put on this earth for, I would have told you to play baseball, because that's what I did. That's what I love to do. I got an opportunity, an invitation to walk on to play at Indiana University. And at the beginning of this campaign, 8 months ago, I would say Indiana University, and I didn't quite get the response that you gave me, Brandon. But now, after football season, national champions, I say Indiana University, everybody's like, okay,
I went to. I'm from Indiana myself. I'm from South Bend.
No kid, my dad from South Bend. Yep,
Ah,
that's awesome.
Yikes.
So yeah, I thought the path was set, and it turns out I injured my arm senior year of high school. Didn't have an opportunity to play baseball, but because Indiana was the only school I applied to with playing baseball there, that's where I went to school. And I quickly found out that it wasn't my time for college. It just wasn't there. When you lose something like playing baseball all your life, being on a team sport, having discipline, and then all of a sudden all that's kind of gone. You quickly realize, like, holy smokes, maybe I wasn't ready for this journey yet. And so I had to come back home. It was only halfway through the first semester, and I was just like, this isn't it for me. So I came back home. I worked as...
Went for the reason. College Nationals championship ring.
For?
Valdosta.
Oh, nice.
I cheered in college.
Oh, heck yeah.
I didn't stay after I quit. I went to competitively cheer. That was it.
Few people understand how much work and ethic that goes into that. That's pretty impressive, man. Funny stories, but not for air. But maybe sometime we can follow up on this one. I got some funny stories about cheer teams and the guys and the work ethic that they put into it. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out where we're at. I got distracted by the championship.
You're talking about you went to IU, find out that it wasn't your time, and you had to come back.
Yep. So I came back home. I worked as a mall security guard. So big fan of Mall Bart, Mall Cop or Paul Bart, Mall Cop.
Paul Bart.
And waited tables. It's a huge. If you wait tables, you're in the hospitality industry. You grow really quick, right? When stressful environments, speaking to people, all those types of things. But ultimately, I was running an errand for the restaurant, and I got stopped at a stoplight on Roswell Road. And when I looked to my right, there was an Army recruiting station. And I sat at the longest stoplight you could possibly imagine. And as I sat there, I got this overwhelming feeling, almost as if a voice was telling me, this is your path. And so I pulled into the parking lot, walked in the Army recruiting station, every recruiter's dream, pointed at the Airborne Ranger poster, and I left for basic training 3 weeks later. It was exactly what I needed in my life. Round peg, round hole moment. I did really well, and after a couple years, my battalion commander saw some potential in me and sent me to West Point. So I got the opportunity to attend and graduate United States Military Academy. I tell people all the time I did not get any smarter at West Point because I went and commissioned as an infantry officer. So I went right back into the infantry. Spent the first half of my career at the 82nd Airborne Division, multiple appointments to Iraq during that time frame. Got selected to go back to West Point and teach. And then after that, I was stationed down at Fort Stewart, Georgia. So my family and I have been here for about 10 years. And so when I talk about character and integrity and those opportunities and sticking to who you are, when you do that and you look out for those around you, opportunities keep coming. And throughout that entire career that I've had, the best opportunity that I got was to meet my wife. Was a randomly assigned escort at an event in Washington, D.C. And 23 years later, we're still together. I have
Wow.
a 17-year-old son and a 13-year-old daughter. And it's been awesome raising them right here in Southeast Georgia. Son plays football. 2 years ago, my daughter came home and said she wanted to start shooting shotguns. So she's been on the competitive shooting team for the past 2.5 years. And it's just been a truly blessed life, which kind of leads me to why I'm running is, you take all those life's experiences, and then when you have a close friend call you and say, hey, I've known you for 25 years. I know the man you are. I know the servant you are. And I really don't care what you're doing, but I'm asking you to continue to serve the nation. I've spent 23 years defending our nation, serving in uniform. Service is who I am. I lost 23 of my West Point classmates during the global war on terror. And the reason why I'm sitting here in front of you today is because I love this country. In honoring their sacrifice and for the sacrifices of all those who served, I know we're a better country than where we're at right now. And if I can continue service and continue sacrificing for this country, that's what I'm going to do until my last breath.
Commitment.
Excellent.
There's a bunch of people that just came on.
Yeah, so let me just catch up in the chat real quick. And say hi to everybody. Savituris, handmade. Uma's here. Jennifer's here. Thank you guys for coming in. I really appreciate it. We did not ask your question yet, Jennifer, so you still have the opportunity to. And of course, for everybody else, please bring your questions on here, and we will ask the questions to Brian. But Brandon, go ahead on your first question, buddy.
Okay, so families in our area are struggling with the cost of living. Obviously, the groceries, the rent, housing, all that. You talk about cutting federal spending. So what does it actually do for someone trying to afford life here in Savannah?
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a great question. So, over the last 8 months, I've had an incredible opportunity to meet just a wide variety of people from across the First District, right? And you talk about families struggling, and that struggle is real. It's not just grocery prices, it's prices at the gas pump, right? It's quality of life, living in the district and, working their tails off. Some people I've met that unfortunately have either been laid off or let go from their job and they're struggling to find a new job. It's extremely tough right now in the environment, and I know people feel that, right? And so combining that to, when I'm focused on, responsible fiscal spending, I think, DC has spent our money absolutely uncontrollable. And so when you look at the main driver of that, inflation is the number one driver, right? And that comes from how we spend our money at the federal level. And so when I say we need to cut spending, that's what I said at the very beginning of this campaign, because I truly believe it down in my heart. We don't do a good enough job in a couple ways. One, we don't take a close look. I mean, we write bills, and then as a representative, that's one of my responsibilities, right? Is appropriations and the budgeting. I truly believe that in some of those bills, we're just way too general in our language when we send that out or we approve funding. And so, depending on who's reading that and how they interpret that, they can use that money for some other purpose as long as it threads that pretty close to that line. And so if you do that and you allow people to spend that way and you don't follow up, which is a second form, under Article 1 for Congress, is oversight, ensuring that people are spending the money the right way. That's what I want to go up and do. Because through my conversations over the last 8 months, I quickly realized we have a lot of programs in the district, whether it's public safety, grants. We're going to talk about Tybee Island here coming up. The district relies on federal money coming back in the district to drive some of these programs. That's not what I'm talking about, right? The money that's truly appropriated for the right reasons is used for those reasons and we receive results from that. That money needs to keep being spent for the right purpose. What I'm talking about is fraud, waste, abuse, duplicative spending, right? Two different organizations, the federal government, that are spending the same money over and over again. That's what we need to focus on through oversight. And the first step to making life more affordable, right? That people understand that the government is there to work for them, not against them. And that's one of the biggest things that I want to do as a representative, to help with affordability and that pressure that people are feeling on an everyday basis.
Trying to flip the script as to what's feeling right now.
Yeah,
Well, one thing I'll say about that, Brandon, Brian, sorry, is you're just one of the 200 some people there that make this decision. So how are you gonna be able to coalesce like a coalition of people to make those things happen, or are you just gonna force them to do their jobs like they should be? Like, what do you mean by that? Oversight.
Well, what I'm talking about oversight, I'm talking about ensuring that I'm executing my federal, my role by the Constitution, and ensure that we're doing the right thing. Pulling people up to DC in subcommittee hearings and committee hearings, and if there's a difference there, holding them accountable for that, right? I've led a life of service, number one, but number two, accountability. And Brandon, serving in the military, that's the number one thing they teach us. We're responsible for our actions. We need to hold ourselves and others accountable. And that's what the role of Congress should be, is continue to ask the questions to make sure that the money that's being spent from our taxpayers is being spent appropriately. And we need people up there that are going to drive that, do their job, and get it done.
I agree with you. 1000% I agree with you. All right, let's check in with the chat. All right, so we got Jennifer. Here's your question. Okay, who do you get your money from? Any kind of RPAC money, big corp money, or big pharma?
No big pharma, no RPAC money, no money from APAC. The money that's supporting this campaign, that's allowing me to get my message out, is from the people that look out for, that are interested in my message or hearing what I'm saying, and they want to support. Coming from inside the districts, hardworking Americans that want to take whatever money that they have to support the right candidate. It's coming from friends and family all across the nation. But it's from individual people that want to support me through the campaign.
Okay.
No.
All right. How do you feel about big money that comes in here, like the because I feel like a lot of money in politics is not a good thing. So where's your stance on Freedom United or Citizens United, where they put money into the campaigns? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so there's number one, there needs to be transparency in where the money's coming from. All right, 100% across the board. People need to know that if there's money coming into a candidate, look, there are special interest groups and PACs that are fighting for people. The NFIB is an example of one of them, right? There are people that support the NFIB, the small businesses, that don't necessarily have their voice on Capitol Hill, right? So they join these other special interest groups so that somebody is speaking on their behalf, right? There are good special interest groups that are fighting for hardworking Americans, families with disabilities, small business owners, right? There are great special interest groups that are out there doing great work. To me, that's what the process exists for, right? But there's got to be transparency in where people are receiving their money from. So if there's somebody supporting a candidate, that's great. But people need to know where that candidate's money is coming from. And I think that's the number one issue. Is there's a lot of ways to hide where that money is coming from, whether it's in super PACs, PACs coming in, and that can really drive a campaign really quickly. It's one of the things I've learned, right? I have an opponent that's got, I don't know, $1.6 million, a lot of that coming from PAC money and different interest groups. And that sways the campaign, right? You've got to have the financial resources to get your message out there. You can be the best candidate with the best message, has the best experiences that are bringing in those skill sets into the job to best represent the people of the first district. But if you don't have the financial resources to get that messaging out there, that's a struggle, right? And you're starting out, at a disadvantage. And I've had a couple conversations with folks as I'm going around and talking, and the amount of money it takes to run a campaign is absolutely insane. If you just take 700,000 plus voters in the first district, and you want to look at whether you're a Republican or Democrat, those voters that have consistently demonstrated that they're going to go out and vote, 3 and 4 time voters, and you want to reach out to them because you know that they're involved in the process, they're interested, and you want to send them a mailer. Well, number one, it's 78 cents to send a piece of mail through the postage office, right? And then when you look at printing out that letter, depending on the graphics, the color, and all that stuff, you can get up to $2 for a mailer to go out. So you add that in with 78 cents on the you could say $3, right? Let's just use an example of $3. You want to send that to 60,000 people. Real quick math tells you that's $180,000 to get that out, right? So there's a lot of money being involved, and when you bring in all that money, if you're not transparent where it's at, you have people that are able to stack the deck and change it. And so one of the things that I've tried to do, right, to counteract that is just get out 3 or 4 events a day, get it with as many people as possible, share the message, listen. God gave us 1 tongue and 2 ears, and I think the biggest thing I can do as a representative is listen to the people. And that has been resonating with that authenticity. I truly believe that people are ready for a representative that's going to listen to them, be accessible, right, and have the experience required to go up there and do the work. And that's what we're trying to do.
No, I agree. I love it. I mean, having the passion is good, but being articulate and be smart enough to be able to execute the plan is also very important. So before the next question, we're going to play this quick video.
And as you can see,
hold on.
Months, mortgage rates were steadily falling, and that's up until March. Okay, so why the sudden reversal from slightly under 6% to surpassing 6.4% in less than a month? So here's what you need to know. Mortgage interest rates are heavily influenced by inflation, the Federal Reserve, and the 10-year Treasury yield. And believe it or not, it's the war in Iran that's driving up mortgage interest rates right now. And the conflict matters because, well, as you probably know, it's been pushing up energy prices, which increases inflation, evidenced by the most recent CPI inflation reports. And also the Federal Reserve is currently printing money, which is also inflationary. And interest rates on treasuries, so government debt, have risen. And that's why we've been stuck in the 6% range, which has not been low enough to boost affordability, but it's not high enough to crash the housing markets.
That's awful. Okay. So we're seeing fewer people being able to buy homes in this area. What specific policies would you support to make home ownership more attainable in the coastal Georgia?
Yeah, so we start off with a nice warm-up question, right, to kind of break the ice and get it in. Again, excellent question. I'd love to be able to wave a magic wand and make housing more affordable, right? And there's some things that a representative, a congressman can do, and there's some things that I have no impact on, right? The Fed sets the interest rates, which impacts the mortgage rates. That's completely separate for a reason. But when you look at those driving factors, and there's a lot of correct things on that slide, right? Inflation being one of them, higher energy costs being the next one, and then you can drive down to housing. So there's a couple of things that I want to do as a representative, right? One, we've kind of already discussed, and that's the financial responsibility and stop the reckless spending going on in DC. Number 2, we need to lower energy costs, and that's unleashing, U.S. energy across the board, right, to get those energy costs down. And 3, we look at the housing market. There's a bunch of things going on there. I've sat in a lot of meetings with the housing market, right? And so, we can talk supply and demand, right? We're just not building houses at the rate that we need to meet, the demand of housing. The types of housing that we're building, right, can be changed. As I sit in some economic development meetings and we're talking about, local communities, the county or the cities looking at what their vision is for 3 or 5 years, they've got to communicate what that vision is, because it's not just having those super nice houses, and luxury homes. We need to provide homes at, the high level, the medium level, and at the entry point level for our workforce development. When you look at just from the military experience, wherever you're stationed at, your BAH is based on the housing market in that area, right? But when you look here in Southeast Georgia, the BAH rate doesn't cover what it costs to live in a house now. And so we're pricing out our workforce from the housing market. And we can't do that. When I go around and I talk to businesses, right? Number one thing is they need, we want to see economic development. We want to provide more opportunities, but we need people to do that, and we need the right people to do that. And that's great. Let's bring in more people in. Well, if we want to bring more people in, we got to give them somewhere to live, and we got to make affordable housing for our workforce development. Okay, so now we're looking at the housing available to them. Well, the next line is that we have to have the infrastructure in place to get those houses up in the areas that are in demand for that workforce development. And we have a lot of infrastructure issues throughout the first district, and we can cover that a little bit later. I'll tell you, when I started this, people would ask me what committees I want to serve on. House Armed Services Committee is number one, just based off my 23 years of serving in the military and having that
makes a lot of sense.
National security perspective. And I used to say energy and commerce. But as I've gone around the district for 8 months, I want to serve on transportation and infrastructure, because that is the one thing that I can do and serve on as a representative from this district to bring the resources back to the district that we need to continue to see improvements in the district. So infrastructure is a huge issue here. Last but not least, when you're looking at affordability, and I know this was specific about mortgage rates, but I think the question was, what are you going to do as a representative, right? When you're looking at all these things, there's a fourth factor in there that I've seen across the board. It doesn't matter what industry it is. And that is, we need to have competitive markets. Right now, what we're seeing across the board, whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in public safety, we're seeing a lot of consolidation of businesses, right? And so when you allow for consolidation of businesses, you get less competitive, you get fewer people making decisions, right? And those normally, when you have less competition and people don't have to worry about it, you get higher prices, longer wait times, everything else going on. So when I'm looking at this from a perspective of the representative, those are the areas I can work on to make affordable, life a little bit more affordable, more enjoyable, and allow for, the American dream to occur, to be able to work hard, provide for your family, get us a house, right? And start living in a house, and then continue to build up as you're successful.
All right. Great answer. Totally agree with you. I've done the affordability for soldiers before. That video I've done several times, and you had to be a lieutenant colonel just to afford a home on BAH. So yeah, it's not for your regular soldiers. So, all right, let's catch up in the chat here. Okay. Handmade ask, will you join the House Freedom Caucus if elected?
Yeah, there's so many caucuses. I think there's over 300 different caucuses. But when I get in there, one step at a time, is to earn the trust of the people in the first district, so that they select me to be a representative. That's what I'm laser focused on right now. Again, is listening to the people, introducing myself, letting them know who I am and my background, what I'm focused on working on, and then I'll look at the caucuses that'll be best suited for the people of the first district.
Okay. Uma asks, are you willing to uphold your duty to the Constitution rather than orders of a particular party politician?
That is who asked that? Uma asked that?
Uma asked that, yep.
Yeah. So I will tell you, and we were talking about this off the screen, I've served in the military for 27 years. I enlisted in 97. My 4 years at West Point don't count. So 23 years when you're looking at, total federal service. But on day one, I swore an oath to the Constitution and to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. And that is one of the most important oaths that I've ever taken. That is what I want to do. And when people ask me, what are you going to do and what bills are you going to pass in Congress, I try to remind them there's very few things that a representative actually gets to control, right? When we're doing bills and we're doing budgets, that's building coalitions, that's talking to people, that's building teams and getting that going. But when it comes to things that I control, there's two of them. Number one is reaffirming my oath to the Constitution, and that's priority number one on day one, when elected to be the next representative, if the people give me that opportunity. And number two is to focus on constituency services here inside the district, putting the right team in place to listen to the people, to provide services back to the people of the first district. Those are two things I'm fighting on. But my loyalty and oath to the Constitution is priority number one when I'm executing my duties and responsibilities as congressman.
Excellent answer.
Is it on the board? Just kidding.
Ding,
It's on the
number one
board.
answer right there. You know,
Ding,
That's
number
the
one.
right answer right there. That's a good. And of course, we have the poll still going. So if you think what is more frustrating right now in our area, the cost of living, rent, groceries, gas, or two, growth and development, traffic, data centers, nickel refineries. Put your answer in the chat, one or two. Which one do you think it is? The poll will be up for another 5 minutes and I'll be pulling it down. All right. So, Brandon, go ahead and go through your next question, please.
Because you can't give all of the above, because that'd be too easy. You got to select one or two. I had a hard time. I wanted to put 1/2, but I don't know if it would have counted. Okay, so with big projects like data centers near Port Wentworth and the large scale developments across our areas, how do you plan to balance that economic growth along with protecting the local communities that are already invested in living here?
Again, I think I'm just going to start off every answer with great question. So as I've got, as I've gone across the district, right, data centers continue to go up, and I've met with a couple groups specifically on data centers, and so again, I'm running to be your representative at the federal level, and so I'm going to take this from a federal perspective and then work my way back down. Listen, I truly believe that AI, right, and the future of AI is incredibly important to our national security and the future of our country. In fact, a couple times I've taken it back to the Manhattan Project, right, when we were working on the first atomic weapon. And what that said, if we failed at that, right, history can be completely different because we weren't the ones leading that, right? But that took a national public and private project, right, the Manhattan Project, to put the natural resource or the entire U.S. resources on that problem set and drive it as a national priority, right? And that's the same way that I feel about AI. This needs to be a significant focus of our government because AI is only as dumb as it will ever be right now as we're talking. It's only getting smarter every single second that we continue to talk. And we need to win this race. Our adversaries are putting a lot of resources into that. And we cannot lose that race. So that's number one from the national security perspective when you look at AI and what it's going to do on the country going forward. But there's a bill to be paid on the back of that. At the federal level, we need to have that discussion so we're making the right decisions. But we're working on that, we're driving that, we don't have a response yet. But what that comes down to is in the lack of that national kind of discussion on what AI and data centers and all those things that go into it. What you have is a massive input of data centers depending on what state, what area is willing to accept them, and they kind of push, right? So data centers, I'm going to tell you, data centers are incredibly important to the future of this country. But now let me take it back down to the local level. They cannot be forced down our throats. All right, there's a lot of conversation happening about that, and really, ultimately, that is a very local discussion, right? There's 15 counties in the first district. And when you're looking at each of those counties, each county needs to make its own decision on whether or not a data center is the right fit for their community, right? And so those things need to take place because as much as there's a county that does not want data centers, I promise you there's a county that is ready to accept a data center in their area, depending on all the things that can come with data centers, right? You've got contracts, you've got property taxes, you have infrastructure that needs to be built that other projects can come in and piggyback off on that. And so there's a lot of positives to it, but I also, when speaking with people, understand the concerns, right? Water usage, power usage, the process seems, as these data centers come in and they come in pretty rapidly, all the way down to land use. Where are they going? What are they, taking up? What are they replacing? Whether it's trees, an industrial park, right? There's all these questions to it. So ultimately, for me, that answer has got to be, we have to be engaged as a population and understand what's coming into our community, work with our elected officials, right, to understand that the people have a voice and their voices need to be heard. And then those elected officials need to understand that everybody has a voice in this. And they need to clearly communicate their vision for their county or their area and say, hey, this is what the data center can bring in for us. This is what the positives can come from it. But at the same time, listening to the people, and through that, we'll get a decision on what areas want to have data centers come in. there's a lot of angst in data centers right now. The last group that I spoke with, right? For the first 20 minutes, I was hearing all the concerns. But I turned it back, I kind of turned it back because I wanted to get a little bit more specific. What is the actual concern? And I said, I'd like everybody to tell me, is your number one concern water usage? Is your number one concern land usage? Is it power generation, the concerns there, noise, right, that coming from the plant? Or is your concern about the process? And I got, as 5 options I gave them, no 6 options of D, all the above, right? Because I wanted to learn specifically, what their concerns were. And they were all the above, depending on your perspective, depending where you lived, and your concerns about it. It ended up being D, all the above. Every single individual that I was sitting with had a different reason for why they were concerned about data centers. But ultimately, transparency is key. Having those conversations and ensuring that the population, the people inside that community, are fully aware of everything that's going on, will lead to a better discussion and ultimately a better decision for that local community.
I'm curious. Sorry, the race with China in order to the data center thing. Are we racing for more to have more of them, or like what is this race about? Is it about the quantity of data centers? Does that make us better because we have more data centers?
Ultimately, it's a race for the AI, right, to continue to improve, because every time AI improves, we get, yeah, it's kind of circular there a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Um, we need to win this race to AI to get the best technology available, because AI is going to have such an impact on our future that we want to be the ones leading that. It's going to allow us, I mean, in every aspect of life, it's going to give us an advantage. How much faster we can work, how much data we can, consume, study, and get predictive results out of it. The entire process is going to continue to increase, and we cannot lose that fight. I think the other, Brandon, when you ask that question, the other part when I'm talking to people in the local communities is it's not only about the now, it's about after, right? Because technology continues to improve at a rapid pace. Pretty soon, we're not going to have to worry about data centers on land because they're going to be underwater or they're going to be in space, right? So when you're having these conversations, make sure that we're holding those people accountable that want to bring data centers in for what's next, right? And ensuring that we're having that discussion so that when AI moves on and we're able to put data centers in other locations, that the land that was being used or where it was built is able to be returned back to what it was in the first place, or able to be transitioned to something that's good for the community. But it's moving at such a rapid rate.
It's a lot more rapid than anyone wants.
Well, I think, and the one thing I think I agree, and this is what I was thinking as well is, I know that everybody says that we got to win the race to AI supremacy, but I mean, like, there is no bar, there's no height to go. No one knows what it leads to. No one knows if they can monetize it. No one knows exactly what it can get to. Of course, supercomputers is what we're looking for, super intelligence. But then, of course, we got CEOs of all these companies saying that it's going to destroy our planet. So I'm just trying to wonder, like, in my brain,
Well,
what are we racing for? And if China wins, what does that mean for us? Are we going to be blown off the planet? Like, what do you think, Brian?
like half of China's like uninhabitable. Like there's such a large circumference of area in China that's not being utilized or used. So a data center makes sense. Here they're putting them in like our backyards. So it's kind of like you've got all this. We have open space too in the Midwest and like the center, but we're putting them in the middle of people's neighborhoods. So I just don't get the race part.
Yeah. So the race part, right? When you're asking what's the number one role of government is to protect the citizens of the country. All right.
Yeah.
And I may not know the extent to where AI is going right now. I don't think anybody can, really truly
Nobody
envision
does.
that. We've got some incredibly smart people that are working on it. But I do know I don't want to be in second place. And I don't
AI.
want to find out the hard way. And I don't want the people of the United States, the people of the first district, to find out the hard way. And that's why, going back to how I started this question, was this needs to be a public, private, national interest to focus on to make sure we're doing it the right way.
Yeah. I was just curious. It came in my head. Brandon. I'm trying to break it down
No,
in my
it's all
head.
good. I mean, it's a great question. I mean, because like I said, no one knows exactly where it's going to go. How will we impact everything? So, I mean, that's a good question, Brandon. Okay, let's catch up in the chat because we will be on data centers all night if we keep going this route. I'm going to tell you that much right now. People like data centers in here. Not really. All right. So, so let's go here. All right. Will you look, or so the Savvy Tourist asks, will you look into insider trading, market manipulation that's currently happening? So I think they're talking about people making trades right before massive, like, announcements and stuff.
Okay, he's not Nancy Pelosi. Like, ask him a better question. Come on.
Well, that wasn't my question. That was the Savvy Tourist's question.
One, it's a great question. I do believe that people are taking advantage of that, and yes, we need to provide oversight to eliminate that. But what I can do right now is let you know that me personally, right, and all I can do is lead by example. Is when elected, if elected, depending on how you want to say that, right? I'm trying to stay positive and give positive visions. Is I will not be trading, and neither will any of my family be trading on stocks when I'm in that position. I'm in that position to serve the people of the first district, not myself. And I think that's one of the biggest issues we have is we continue to send representatives to DC that are focused on either one, making a ton of money, or two, increasing their name and fame and recognition for future, for positions. I want to earn those positions through the hard work that I'm giving to the people of the first district. And that's the only reason I'm in this race.
Great. Handmade said Jessup has an industrial park. Is that enough infrastructure? If not, what more is needed to bring business in?
Jessup, a lot. You need a lot.
So number one, Jessup's absolutely amazing. I think I've gone there 10 or 12 times on the campaign trail because I love it. So I don't know the specifics about the Jessup Industrial Park or what the requirements would be there, but I'd be more than happy to continue to have discussions. I think one of the issues, right, when I speak to people and I listen is there's a lot of counties in the first district that don't even get considered when it comes to projects that could come in to provide additional jobs, higher wages, because they don't have the infrastructure in place. A lot of people don't understand that they're missing out on opportunities that aren't even considered because the infrastructure isn't there. And so that's when we're looking at this infrastructure issue, we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to be competitive for those best projects to bring them into the county to provide additional opportunities. One of my visions, people talk to me all the time about what is your vision for the first district. I truly believe we need to development. The development train has left the station. All right, it is running at 180 miles per hour, and we're trying to catch up with it. And it's critical to talk about development because you could have a ton of opportunities, but if you have increased traffic, increased strain on water and infrastructure, right? And quality of life goes down, you're miserable sitting in traffic for 30 minutes, right? And all you do is remember 15 years ago when I can make this drive in 5 minutes and now it takes 30 minutes, right? So,
wait, are you talking about Pooler? That's rude. That's rude.
There's more areas than just Pooler, and Pooler is working extremely hard to provide opportunities up there. It's not just in Pooler, I promise you.
It's awful.
So when you look at development, I truly believe that we need to continue to have development, but we need to do it responsibly. And my vision for the first district, right, when I talk to everybody about development and I ask them if they have children, and they say, yep, I have children. And I said, great, where are they? It's always Atlanta, Jacksonville, Charlotte, somewhere else than here in Southeast Georgia. And so my vision for the first district is we need to develop responsibly, right? So that everybody has a good quality of life. We're taking care of our natural resources that we're so blessed to have with here in Southeast Georgia. But we also need to develop in a way that we continue to have opportunities for future generations, because there's nothing that I would want more than opportunities that exist here in Southeast Georgia that, whatever my son and whatever my daughter goes to do, that they can be successful here in Southeast Georgia and we can keep the family together. And that's one of my visions for the district.
And they can't do that getting frustrated sitting in traffic all day. I'm less productive sitting in traffic.
And it's not, talk about traffic, we kind of laugh at that because we're experiencing that. But there are also people in our district that drive 65 miles, right? Spend an hour and a half driving their vehicle because that's where their job is at. And, they want to live in Waycross. They want to live in Blackshear. But when they have to drive all the way to Douglas for the job, that's not what they want either. right? So we got to continue to drive, the opportunities here so that people that love living here can continue to stay here and don't have to either sit in traffic or drive hours for that opportunity to
Because it's
provide for their
unaffordable,
families.
that close. That makes sense. This is just the traffic. I don't think the infrastructure is doing wonderful here in Pooler. It's really awful.
Well, they're
Well, but
fixing it, right? They're
that's
working on it.
responsible development. Pooler is such a great area that it rapidly expanded, right? And we kind of got out in front of our skis a little bit. But I know that there are people up there that are working extremely hard to bring that back. It's just going to take some time. But when we're talking about responsible development that has left the train, we need to try to get ahead of it, right? And so that we can develop responsibly, have that 3 to 5 year plan, 10-year plan, and so that we can bring the right industries that we want to inside the district.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm just going to throw on there real quick is, one of the things that I've been telling our local elected officials, there's a lot of people that run for office and they talk about the people, the people, the people. Absolutely, the people are the number one priority. But there's already elected officials that have been determined by the people to be who they want to represent them, whether it's in city councils, mayors, county commissioners, right? And throughout this, what I've been trying to talk about is that we need somebody that knows what it's like to work with a team, right? And so I call it the 3 legs of the stool. You got the local, you got the state, and you got the federal. And one of the goals that I want to do is I'm working across and I'm speaking to as many elected officials as possible and hearing from them. I'm working with our state representatives and state senators and listening to them, right? And I want to be that 3rd leg on the stool to build that team entire together so that the 1st district continues to grow the way we want it to grow.
You seem like you're a really team-oriented kind of person. That's cool. Okay, so I'll switch gears. I'll
When you're
switch
in the
gears.
situations that I've been in my life, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You keep towing me on. Whether it's been in combat, whether it's been responding to humanitarian and natural disasters, the team is what gets you through it and communicating. And listen, I'll be the first one to tell you, I've never been the smartest man in the room, nor will I ever be. It's the people that I've surrounded myself with and building those teams, the reasons that I've enjoyed success so that we've accomplished the mission going forward. Teams are everything.
I'm not going to say you're the stupidest person in the room, but I'm going to say hopefully they don't die. Okay. Sorry. That was funny. Okay. I'll switch. Okay. So with the U.S. already involved in the growing conflict in Iran, what role should Congress play in authorizing or limiting any further military involvement?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the power of the War Powers Act resides in Congress, right? And I'm going to be honest with you. I kind of said it at an earlier one. America's job is to protect Americans, but that doesn't mean we just kind of sleepwalk into endless wars, right? I've participated in the Iraq conflict, right? Listen, it is the role of Congress to ensure that we don't get involved in wider conflicts, that we approve the funding that's required for it, and that, to me, that discussion needs to happen in Congress, right? The president gave Iran a 2-week ceasefire window to come to their senses. We're the most powerful military the world has ever seen, but we continue to demonstrate our strength over and over again. But it doesn't mean that we're ruthless. It doesn't mean that we don't care. The president provided him a 2-week window to come to the table, right? And we're going to negotiate from a position of strength. But if you continue to ignore that, you're going to feel the impact of that. And then that's exactly what the president is discussing right now. But it needs to come back to Congress. And I'll give you a clear reason, from over 23 years of service. Congress needs to have that discussion because a couple things. One, we have the power of the purse and we need to understand where we want to put our priorities and how we spend our money, right? Number two, we need to have clearly defined goals when we enter into conflict. And I think we saw that in Iran. No nuclear weapons, defeat the ballistic missile threat, don't put the Navy, don't allow the Navy to have an impact on the Strait of Hormuz. But to me, on a more personal level, and I think that the conversation that always doesn't happen, is we put young men and women who raise their hand to defend our nation at risk, right? And we tend to focus on those short-term goals that happen, and we don't have the discussion about 15, 20, 30 years later when we put these young men and women in harm's way. And I will tell you always, over and over again, if you look through history, When things get tough financially again in this country, where do they go and where do they take cuts from first?
Military.
The exact same people that we asked to put their lives on the line to defend our national interest. And so when you have these conversations, it's not just about the short-term cost to the American people, but it's also fulfilling the contract that we make to those people, to those young men and women who serve our nation, to ensure they continue to receive the benefits that they've earned and the care that they receive because they've earned it through their service. And so to me, that's a much larger conversation we need to have before there's any conflict, whether it's Iran or anywhere else, that needs to be had by Congress before we commit ourselves.
Okay, well, what do you, so where we're at right now, what would you say? Should Congress take any action now, or just let it go as it's planned, or what?
Now, the president has the authority to make action, to take action on a military level, and has 60 days, right, before it needs to get brought back to Congress. And that discussion needs to take place now, because there are young men and women that are overseas, their lives are at risk, and we need to ensure that they're going to continue to either receive the funding that's required for them to do their job, or we need to bring them back home. But that discussion needs to happen in Congress with the support of the American people.
Well, I agree. It needed to be happened, but I feel like it should have happened before we went, and we lost, people, but and amongst other things. But I didn't feel like we went into this Iran thing. Personally, I don't feel like we went to it with a great plan. If I'm being honest, I don't understand why we affected the entire world's economy, and I don't know that we achieved much. I mean, have you feel like we achieved anything, Brian?
I think with over 17,000 targets hit in the country of Iran, and the degradation of their ballistic missile threat, their drone threat, their navy, and their opportunity to cause harm, right? Like, listen, the Iranian regime is an evil regime, 100%. If you look at, just the first casualty we took on my second deployment to Iraq was from an EFP, an Iranian provided munition in the theater of Iraq. Over 600 deaths of American soldiers in Iraq came at the hands of weapons provided by Iran into that theater. When you look across history, right, they've developed the Ring of Fire, whether it's Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, right? They have created a network of terrorism that is designed to drive fear and prevent from people from living their lives. It is an evil regime. Now, I wasn't in the room, and I could say personally, Brian Montgomery, but to me, I'm fighting to get into that room, to have the intelligence, to understand why those decisions were made, so I can share that back with the people of the first district. But I wasn't in the room. I didn't have the intel, but I have faith in whatever it was that drove that decision to attack Iran was based on intelligence, and the president of the United States made that decision of once again protecting the citizens of the United States.
Can I ask a question?
No. You can't on your own podcast?
No.
That's not allowed. I'm sorry.
I just don't. I'm trying not to be selfish, but I'm trying to wrap all this in my head. Do the people that are going to go into this fight, like all the military people going into this fight, do they know beforehand that they're going to be going into this before it's announced?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of the best way. So, once we start, even before a decision's made, you've got to set the conditions for, whether or not the president or the commander makes that decision, right? And so you want to have all those units in place, resources in place. And so you start moving before the ultimate decision in order to give the best amount of options for that person that's got to make that decision. And so even before that, when you start moving, they may not know the specifics of their objective or their target, but they know that they're going to move into this theater, and this is what they're prepared to do.
I wonder, I really feel like if they're going to raise their hand to say, I go as tribute, kind of thing, I feel like they should have a voting center that they can go in and vote yes or no. Like the people that are
they did. When they did this, that's when they voted. No. They voted when they did this. That was the vote. You don't get to vote in the Army.
I know, but I'm saying I feel like they should.
Yeah, that's not how that works.
You're going to get thrown into it. You should be like, good idea, not good idea, and at least take that into consideration.
That's before you go to the recruiter's office.
Them out.
Before you go to the recruiter's office, you make that
Well,
decision.
then suck it up, Buttercup. You chose this. Like, what do you want from me? Trying to give you an opportunity to vote or say something.
All right. So Uma asked this question on Facebook. I'm going to read it. Okay. She says, what steps would you take to reverse the damage that Trump has done to the environment by defunding and dismantling federal organizations such as the U.S. Forest Service and allowing Chilean companies to mine copper in Minnesota?
Uma, great question. I was going to ask specifically, why do you think that's occurred? Because I've spoken with park rangers, I've spoken at state park and federal rangers, and I've asked them how are things going. And to be honest with you, when it comes to the state park and natural resources, they're saying they're seeing more people utilize the resources, come out and visit the parks and take place in that. Specifically, I don't know the background on the mining project. I think you said it was in Minnesota. Did you say it was in Minnesota?
Chilean companies to mine copper in Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that, and so I'll kind of to come back with that. So yeah, that's kind of my answer on that one. I don't know if Uma's got more specifics.
I got you. Okay. And then Handmade says, doesn't China have a history of stealing our advances in various areas? We can't get ahead unless we solve that problem. I guess so. What are you going to do about Chinese leaks? I guess is that what you're asking?
Agreed, right? IP theft is a real thing.
Right.
When it comes to China, we got to do a better job of protecting it and securing our national security interests.
It's like too late. They're already here. It's already.
Well, I would say, I mean, the Chinese people have done a smart thing over the past. I mean, just if you think about my lifetime and what they've done, I mean, I know that it's harsh working conditions they've done for their people, but they have totally taken over the industrial industry. Now I guess they're getting in bed with the Iranians, and they went the other route. So, I mean, how bad of a threat do you feel China is, Brian, to America right now?
I think it's a significant threat, and I think they've been an adversary for the better part of 3 or 4 decades. And let's kind of dig into kind of what you just said there. So number one, we had a huge manufacturing base in the United States, right? We were able to build and provide for ourselves. And when the government gets involved and we start regulating, right? And there's good regulations that protect people, but when you start over regulating and you make it cost prohibitive to maintain manufacturing in the United States and you offshore that, China did a phenomenal job of understanding, like, well, if you're going to, increase the costs in your own country, then we'll take that from you and be responsible for your entire supply chain and your manufacturing facilities, right? And now we have to rely on China to get that done. Several things I'll tell you in there. In my own personal experience, when I transitioned out of the military and I worked for a company, we were, designing a product. And I fought for 6 months to find a location inside the U.S. to have our product made in the United States. Could not be done. There was some aspect of it that could not be made in the United States and that we'd have to rely on overseas manufacturing for. All right.
It's labor.
I tried for 6 months and it cannot be done here. So that's one example. That's one of the reasons I'm so passionate when I'm talking about onshoring manufacturing again, to ensure that we're able to maintain our own manufacturing base, which again is a national security concern. But I'll take it to a different level. Pharmaceutical manufacturing, right? 90% of the raw materials that go into pharmaceuticals come from China, Israel, and India. All right. China doesn't even have to fire a shot. When the average American's on above 15 prescription drugs a day, and we're relying on overseas for 90% of our raw materials and prescription drugs and manufacturing, they don't even have to fire a shot. They just shut down our supply of raw materials to pharmaceuticals, right? And so China doesn't even have to attack us because we have allowed them to take our supply chain and run with it and make us dependent on them. So when you're talking about these things about putting, America first, this is what I'm talking about when it comes to national security and bringing that back. But that doesn't happen overnight, right? We need to retrain our workforce, get the right workforce pipeline of training individuals in order to work in those manufacturing jobs. And we need to bring them back on the United States purely for a national security risk that takes place when we've offshored that. And so that's one of the focuses is I want to support the reshoring of manufacturing so we can control the supply chain again.
Can we afford to pay those people?
It, I mean, this all work is valuable. All right. I think we've kind of lost sense of that in this country. If you're willing to work, and provide services for a job, that's valuable. I don't really care what it is, whether you go to college, where you go to a trade school, right? You're providing back into, the American dream by, bringing valuable work into the country. And so we need to bring it back on. We need to pay the proper wages for the people's skill set. The funny thing is that when you look at the skill sets required for manufacturing, we've lost a big basis of that in the country, and we're going to have to bring it back and have people go through those skills and trades and welding and electricians and plumbers and everything else that goes on to that, and bring value back to that work, so we can provide that back in the country.
They've only studied texting, so we got to bring it back. I got to bring it back.
I literally was watching somebody text with their thumbs the other day, and they were moving so fast I cannot even imagine. And I remember trying to use the ASDF JK. I still have to work on my keyboard, and so I can't imagine using a whole other keyboard with my thumbs.
They're really gonna need China when they get arthritis. They're gonna need that medicine.
Yeah, I mean, you made some good points about China. Of course, I didn't think about that part with the medicine and all that stuff too. So that is wild.
They have a bunch of all the stuff that we need.
Yeah, a bunch of all the stuff we need.
We just gave it to them to do it because they'll work children. And okay, so so Tybee Island was expecting about $12 million in federal funding for the beach renourishment, and now that funding has been delayed or redirected, even though the city has already come up with its share. So what would you do in Congress to make sure communities like ours actually receive the funding they've been promised? Because that's crazy.
So how crazy is it?
So crazy. $12 million. How do you receive the money, but then you don't have it?
Yeah, so that money was approved all the way through 2036, with authorizations looking at the nourishment project, right? It happens, and so as an elected representative, there's a couple things that I can do. Number one, fight to ensure that the funding that's been approved in the district actually makes it back to the district, right? That's number one. Number two, and Brandon, I think you're going to give me a little bit of flack for this, because I'm going to talk about teams again, right? Building a coastal coalition of, the city managers, the county, the state delegation, Georgia DNR, the Army Corps of Engineers, to ensure that you have relationships with all of them, that when you're communicating to them the importance of this, of this project and the prioritization and why it's needed, that's critically important. The second one is you got to continue to push for that, because this project in and of itself is a renourishment project to keep our beaches the right way, that protects us from storms, that protects us from storm surge, protects the people that live there, protects the infrastructure that live there and the businesses that live there, right? That's critically important. If we don't receive the money, right, that expense is going to continue to grow. We need to keep it on its program path and fight for it, because one, what we can't do is, this is critically important to receive the money in the area in order to do these preventative, nourishment projects on it, because it's only going to get 10 times X, 20 times X more expensive if we don't stay on track on it and continue to rebuild the beach line when a storm comes in, and the damage that can be done because we didn't keep up with the nourishment project, right? And now it's even 10 times more expensive than if we just would have committed the money to it. When you look at what's been going on in Tybee Island, you go back to Matthew and Irma and the successive storms that are hitting the beach, right? That is causing the erosion to occur at a faster rate. You can look at the rise in the sea level as well. But listen, people live there, and the representative needs to be there to fight for those resources that are required for people to have a great quality of life. And then inside of that is this nourishment project. And so that's what I'd be focused on doing as a representative.
Fantastic.
What
are you gonna say, Brandon?
I'm just thinking, because thinking about Tybee Island. Tybee Island has Okay, so I know people that live on the west side of Savannah, and like their house almost got flooded, and they're about almost 4.5 feet off of the ground. But the city has done nothing to like help with that end. But Tybee Island is making this big story and getting all this money. Like how? Like where's that money? What makes the difference from Tybee Island getting this $12 million budget, and then west side of Savannah getting flooded out because no one really knows or cares or whatever it is over there? I just
So there's a one, all are issues, right? All are concerns. But when you're specifically looking at this $12 million that did not come in, it's appropriated through the WRDA that was passed in 2022, an extension to. And specifically, when you look at that authorization, it's only allowed to be spent on coastline facing the ocean,
Mhm.
right? And so anything outside of that is prohibited from this money being used for that project. And so again, going back to specific terms when we pass appropriations and we pass laws at the federal level, right? That the wording has meaning on what it can be spent for, and specifically for this one, Tybee Island is bringing 40% to the cause of keeping the beaches up and the quality of life up. The federal government is bringing in 60% of it, but that 60% is very specific in what it can be used for. And so that's why I'm saying it's got to be focused on that. Now, outside of that, and the other part of the discussion, working with city officials, county officials, and looking at other infrastructure projects that can be brought in to help with the flooding and drainage and everything else that occurs across the first district, right? There's not an area in Southeast Georgia that isn't experiencing infrastructure issues, that isn't experiencing drainage issues, isn't experiencing, land use and how it's ending to that. But again, those are all separate conversations to have for those individual problems. But when it comes specifically to this 12 million, it can only be used on coastlines that actually face the ocean.
correct. Just is it the census? Does the census have something to do with like the certain neighborhoods and the amount of funding and everything that they get?
That
I
I'm
think it
not.
has to do with the city where they allow the county where they divert funds, depending on the bills. Like I think I don't know if the county had something to do with I didn't read too much into the Tybee Island thing, but I don't know who appropriated that money. But I mean, that's probably a big push because of tourism. You know what I'm saying? They're going to get more push because of that. I'm assuming downtown Savannah probably gets some kind of similar treatment when it comes to cash because of the historical district kind of
Certain
moniker.
part.
So
I that was just me asking curiously because I was like, I don't know who came up with this $12 million. Is it the people? Is it the government? Like what?
well, they
Because
came up with 8.
Tybee can come up with that kind of money ish, the 40% of it, whatever. But like, there's people in other parts of the city that aren't getting things done. But like, I'm wondering why. But like, they just had like this 12. Well, they don't have it anymore. But or the $12 million funded for that project. But then there's other places around the cities that maybe aren't in the Tybee Island lifestyle that are like about to lose their places because the city's not doing anything to take care of it. I'm just asking because you kind of know a little bit of government stuff. Like, what would be the
So
starting point? Like, who do you go to, or like, where does this stuff come from?
yeah, so working with the representative, right, and um, so when you're working with the team, you're looking at the local and the city and the county, right? And they're going to come back and say, hey, this is the project that we need to do, and then we're going to submit a formal request to supply this amount of money for that, right? And then the representative and the government looks at, okay, what projects could this fit into, what has been allocated for it, and what's occurring inside there. So it all starts at the base level of it, recognizing the project that needs to take place. Whether participation from the Army Corps of Engineers, the Skidaway Island Oceanography Institute. Right, there's tons of incredible people that do these studies that make the prediction of when these need to be done, and then what that project looks like, the requirements for it, and what the cost of it is. And when they get the cost of it, they can make a request up to the federal government to help subsidize this through the Army Corps of Engineers. And so those are appropriated, right, through bills and grants and everything else like that. It's just, you know, things change, other priorities come in, and then you need to have a representative, right? Because it's a constant combat for the finite resource that it exists, and you need to continue to build those relationships and ensure that, you know, things inside your district maintain up on that priority. And I think I read somewhere that it went up to New Jersey and some other areas in New Jersey that are facing the same experiences. But you just got to keep communicating and staying aware of what's going on. And again, that comes to building that team and having those talking points in order to keep it at a priority for the funding to be released.
And we see why China's winning, because they've been in government for 100 bazillion years. The same person.
Well, I'm glad. I mean, I like the thought of doing teams. I mean, I think a lot of people in this country are sick and tired of just politicians going up there and fighting back and forth and just really not getting anything done. So I'm glad to see that you're trying to put teams together. Let me catch up a little bit on the chat, and then we're gonna give you one last question before we let you go. Okay. So a lot of it is politicians have sold us out. Jennifer does not feel bad for Tybee. They've been waiting for their canal to be fixed for a while. Bad things about Trump. I'm not going to read that. Like I said, current and past politicians wasted our tax money, and no matter what, they're stealing from us. Okay, so I just want to say thank everybody for joining the chat. I really, really appreciate it. Brian, before we let you go, I want to ask you one last question. What did you want to tell us, or what did you want to talk about that we did not ask you?
I think the question that I wanted you to ask me is, you know, what is the biggest thing that you're concerned about after 8 months on the campaign trail? What is your biggest concern?
Okay. What's your biggest
concern?
concern?
On us, please. That's a good question.
Good question, Brian.
So I will tell you right now.
That'd be a good answer.
All right, you got to give me thumbs up or thumbs down. All right, like the thumb is up there, and you know
we'll do a poll.
You're sitting here like this, and you're gonna go up or down, right? Listen, the thing that concerns me, right, is as I get around the district and I speak to folks, a vast majority of the people in the district aren't really tracking that there's an election coming up, right? We can call it voter apathy, we can call it, you know, mistrust of the system. People are disappointed in government, right? You kind of started off the show like, why would you get involved in this? Like, members of Congress are some of the most unapproved, you know, jobs, you know, right now, and people don't distrust it. And so my biggest concern right now is, as I've been on the trail for 8 months, you know, still a vast majority of the people don't understand that, don't know that there's an election going on. They understand elections, right? Of course, but they don't know what's happening. And so when I speak to people, and they're like, oh, I didn't even know an election's going on. A lot of the issues that we're facing right now is we need people to be involved in this process, right? And the team's going to kill me because I want you to vote for me. I think I've got the best experiences in my life, you know, the sacrifices, and I'm truly here to serve you. But I want you to vote, right? I want you to be a part of the process and understanding who's going up there, because I think one of the craziest things I've learned is, especially when it comes to primaries, right? Everybody focuses on the general election, and I've learned this through the experience. But it's the primaries that choose who's going up for that general election. And it's such a small part of the population that participates in primaries and is knowledgeable about what's going on, so that when everybody else comes in the general election, that candidacy has already been chosen for you, and now you're down to two choices. The biggest thing I'm concerned about is more people being involved in the process early, so that they have the best option moving forward. And that's really that's the question I want to share with people is, no matter what happens, be a part of the process, learn who the candidates are, make the decision that who do you believe is going to best represent us here in the 1st District, has the best vision for the district, and that you know is going to work their tail off for you. The past 8 months I've been out every single day except for Sunday. That's the day for, you know, God and my family. But every single day, 2 to 3 events a day, 4 events a day, what I've been trying to demonstrate is exactly the mentality and the work ethic that I will take on for you as your next representative. Because it's not a light switch. It's not like, hey, once I get elected, I'm all of a sudden going to turn it up and work for you. I'm demonstrating right now what it's like and who I'm going to be as your representative to continue to fight and work for you, the people and the teams here inside the state. And so that's what I'm laser focused on. I definitely appreciate to earn your support, and most importantly, your vote. It's the most critical thing that we have. And if you want to have more information or engage with me, please go to brianmontgomery.org. You'll see like my website's there. You can click on the social media and you can see how much I'm getting out to speak with people, interact with people, and listen. And that's the most critical thing I've done over the last 8 months to help me prepare for this job that I'm applying for. Longest job interview I've ever been in my life. 8 months. It's still 29 days to go. Early voting starts next Monday. All right. First vote will be cast next Monday, and then May 19th election night. So please be involved. I want your support. I'd love to have your vote. And that's all I got for you.
Brian, unbelievable interview. I really appreciate it. Very thorough. I mean, I expect that from an Army officer. So obviously, very good job. I really appreciate you coming on. I thought the answers were good. I mean, we don't agree on everything, but that's not, how life is. So, that's fine. But I thought you had a good answer on that last one. So I thumbs up on that one.
Brandon, I'm still waiting for you. You got to give me.
I voted first.
the only vote.
No, there's two. It's me and him. No, Brian. Hey,
that's a good answer.
It was. So if you win, will you come back on?
100%. I will definitely come back on.
All right. Excellent. So thank you so much. And I want to say I appreciate you. I wish you good luck on the campaign, and we hope to see you again.
All right. You all have a great night. Thank you.
Yeah. Good luck.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Wow, right?
I like it. I don't want this to sound inappropriate, but I was like, it's almost like dad. Talk to daddy.
Oh wow.
He's so like he explains things well, and he seems like he's intelligent. So it's like he's almost like how Joshua has me when he's talking about history. I don't care about history. It's not interesting, but then he makes it interesting.
Oh, there you go.
Like,
I expect nothing less from a retired Army officer. I mean, he's going to be well. He's been seen some stuff, so works well with people. So I mean, I'm looking for a politician. Look, I don't. I said before. I had before identified as Democrat. I don't identify with any party anymore because I've learned that it's a scam. So. You vote for who you think is going to do well for you and your issues. We're not going to agree with everything, but
you might be wrong. It's okay.
Huh?
And you might be wrong. It's okay.
Yeah, well, but like I said, I want to say Jennifer, to Uma, to the Savvy Tourist, to everybody that came on. Thank you guys so much for coming and joining this experiment. We look forward to you guys. Pat Williver is coming on. He was supposed to come on next week, but he came. What?
When can Pat Williver get on? That's on him, bro. He was scheduled.
He is coming on. Hold on. Where's my calendar at? I believe he's coming on the 4th. Yes, the 4th of May is when he's coming on, so we definitely want to see you to come back. We have some school board president. Who we have coming on, bro? Did we schedule that yet?
Yeah, so I'm trying to get in touch with him.
Okay.
But he wants to come on, so it shouldn't be hard. So
all right,
if you care about your children's education, then it'll be a good one for you.
And then on the 11th, we're going to be having Stephanie Burgess. She's running for Georgia State House 164. So if you're curious about Stephanie, definitely come on the 11th. So the 4th for Pat, Stephanie's on the 11th, and we're gonna have other people there. So like I said, I appreciate you guys coming on this experiment. Like
both do.
We love you guys. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Good night.